I think the first order of business is to congratulate ourselves on reaching our second episode.
Our second episode?
It's a binary joke for you.
God damn it, man.
Of all the people that might have got that, you were top of my list. And you just sat there, stony-faced.
You've been joking about this being season 2 of the podcast, so, you know.
True, yeah. I'm looking forward to season 3 now.
No, we're still on. Like, if we, this is still part of your season 2.
Yeah, but next time is going to be season 3. Well, technically, next time will be season 2.5 because we'll be doing our highly ill-informed introduction to the series 11 of Robot Wars. Series 10 of Robot.
You fool.
Can we count Battle of the Stars as like its own little series?
I think not.
God, that was terrible. There's a reason we haven't spoken about that.
Yes, there is. And we don't have seasons of this podcast. It is just an ongoing thing, and we're on episode 10.
I was showing the podcast to someone the other day. I don't remember why. But they commented on the ambition shown by your 3-digit indexing system.
Look, you got to dream big, man.
But of course, you're saying dream big. Your idea of dreaming big is only 999 episodes. If you're going to dream big, dream bigger.
I know. Well, when we hit episode 1,000, I'm going to have to think carefully about how to migrate some stuff on the website to still support that.
Hang on. Let's just do the maths here. Right now, we're averaging about 1 a fortnight.
Yep.
That means 26 a year.
Yep.
Which means it would take us, 40 years to reach that point?
I think in 40 years' time, I'll be confident enough with web server administration that I'll be able to handle the carryover to 4-digit numbers.
That's a more optimistic view of it than I was taking. I was thinking I probably won't live that long.
You must live that long. You're not that old.
I live entirely on chocolate.
Okay, you might die in 20 years.
I podcast laying down because it's better than sitting up. I'm not a healthy man. What I am, however, is a man who is true to his word. I promised a comprehensive list of pink robots in the previous episode.
Yes.
So, are you ready? Sit back, relax.
Have you perchance put them in a document that I can go and look at as well, or are you just going to rattle them off?
No. I'm going to rattle these off, and you're going to sit and listen to all of them. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah, go on then.
Kilotron, Glitter Bomb, Mouse and Mecha Catbot, Bad Kitty. It's the only 4 I could find. That's my reasonably comprehensive list of pink robots.
That's a disappointingly short list. I wonder what the most common colour is for robots. I guess it's like black or silver, isn't it?
God.
There's some research to be done.
Oh man, the worst thing is I'm tempted. I'm really tempted to at least go through a couple of series.
It'd be quite funny. I occasionally see online like pictures of the average human face. Right, they take a bunch of pictures, and they stack them and average them in a weird way, and you get the average human, and it averages out obviously face shape and skin tone and all that kind of stuff. I wonder what the same approach to robots would be. I wonder what that would look like. A huge mess, I imagine.
If we were talking purely British, and especially if we were counting the live scene era without the TV series, you would basically get a wedge.
Yeah, boxes and wedges and that stuff.
You would get a wedge with a rear hinge flipper. That would be the average design, but there'd be some good outliers in there. I should point out, this reasonably comprehensive list of pink robots, I went through every robot from about 3 series, and then got bored and just tried to remember a few.
Yeah.
So there's probably a few more out there. However, I think it is, as I say, reasonably comprehensive. I almost counted one of the versions of Napalm, but it was more red. So yeah, if anyone out there wants to complete that list, you are more than welcome.
Tom Scott on YouTube did a video recently about the pinkest pink. There's this guy that's made a particular pigment of pink that's ridiculously pink, and sufficiently pink that most cameras and screens and stuff can't show it accurately. And I think a robot maker should find that pigment and cover their entire robot in it.
But then they'd have to go into the horribly lit arena and it wouldn't show up very well anyway.
It would show up amazingly for the audience who are there, and then it would look rubbish on television. And it would really...
Everyone comes home raving about the really pink robot, and then on telly it's just kind of pink.
It would really, really annoy the person that's got to do the colour correction for it as well.
Trying to colour grade that would be
Yeah, because
awful.
it's so far out of the usual colour space. Oh man.
Yeah, we really do need hashtag more pink robots.
Yeah, well, just more colourful robots. I think in general, not just pink ones. More colours.
Problem is, colourful robots do tend to look a bit stupid.
Yes,
Black
and?
and a colour works quite well. Danton Kia's done that and looked good. Carbide does that and looks good. Probably some other robots too. I'm trying to think of really colourful robots.
There's not enough really colourful robots.
One that I always thought looked really good was Evil Weevil, if you remember that.
If I remember that, of course I don't remember it.
You might have done. It's quite distinctive.
Evil Weevil.
Today, in episode 3 of Ryan and Sam Google Robots.
Look, you are the one that brings up these weird robots.
I'm the one that actually remembers them. That's why. You need to go back and do your research.
Mate, I've got enough old. Like, I'm busy with Seinfeld. I've got I've got a lot of television to do still. That is a weird looking robot. It's like a bug type thing, isn't it?
Hence the name Evil Weevil.
Is a weevil a bug? Oh man.
Arguably, I think a weevil may be the larvae of something adult, but I'll allow it.
See, this episode of Sam Googles robots has turned into Sam looks like an idiot, and then Googles insects. A weevil is an insect.
Try putting the evil on there, and maybe you'll get further.
Now, I've seen the pictures of Evil Weevil. I'm looking at the Wikia page, and I commented that looks like a bug, and then it does look like a bug because it's obviously designed after an actual weevil, which is not something I'd ever heard of before.
Don't they just eat potatoes or something?
Why
I don't know
are you
why I'm
asking the person
you
that's
this.
literally never heard of them before now?
Oh, now, you've looked at Evil Weevil. Which version of it have you looked at?
So I'm looking at pictures on the Robot Wars Wikia site. So there's on Series 4, it's all bronze, which is a bit rubbish. In Series
3 is the one I was thinking of.
it's like yellow and green, which is pretty cool.
I think that looks really cool.
Yeah. Well, pretty cool.
To be fair, yellow and black is something that we see quite a lot because it is kind of the danger colours. So Cassius went for it, Panic Attack went for it, Danton Kia I've mentioned as well. I've only really made a list of 3 here, which isn't necessarily as impressive as it needs to be, but...
It's as comprehensive as your pink robots list.
That is very true. And of course, the other things we just see are basically just metal-coloured robots, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think stuff like Hypnodisc and Razor, 2 of the best we've ever seen, were just the colour of their own materials.
Yep. And that's fine.
It'd be better if they were pink, though.
I don't know, man. I think if Razor was pink, I think it would lose something.
Oh, I thought of another one. Or was it? Oh.
Ooh.
Bigger Brother went over to Battlebots to compete and was rebranded as Little Sister. That was either pink or yellow. Can't remember which. I'm fairly sure they made a pink robot.
Googling the phrase Little Sister Robot returns a bunch of stuff from Bioshock 2.
Try Battlebot then.
Yeah. Little Sister is
This
yellow.
is the level of thinking that I should have been doing when I was making the list. Okay, that is yellow, in which case it was a middleweight they made, I think, called Ellie's Little Bot.
I mean, shall I keep Googling these things?
If you want to. Oh, I can't find it. No. Oh yeah, Ellie's Little Pink Bot. There we go. I've extended the list to 5, and I imagine it's pink.
Could be bright orange. It is pink. I'm looking at it now. It's pink. What is that robot with the flamethrower? Growler. I'm completely sidetracked now.
That's...
completely.
That was a
completely-
weird thing to hear out of the blue.
Completely sidetracked by other robots. So on that pink robot thing, there's a robot called there's a picture of it fighting Growler. Oh my goodness me! This thing looks awesome.
What, Growler the House Robot?
Yeah,
Do you not remember Growler the House
I
Robot?
do not remember this. No, this is the first. I thought this is the first time I've ever seen this. That's amazing.
Did you never watch Series 7?
Evidently not. Dude, that's awesome. Why isn't that there? Why is...
Mate, you've never watched Series... I mean, Series 7 was kind of terrible, but Growler was pretty good. In fact, I think Growler might have been around from Series 6 as well. It was Cassius Crone that was introduced to Series 7.
It was 6, 7 and Extreme 2. And in Dutch Series 2 and German Series 1.
Growler was pretty good. Big Growler fan.
I mean, so am I now. Mr. Psycho? What have I missed out on?
Mr. Psycho with the massive hammer?
Yeah, I do remember Mr. Psycho. I must have seen this and Growler just didn't stand out to me.
Right, check out Cassius Chrome and just look at how terrible a robot it is.
I'm too busy looking at Mr. Psycho. I mean, that's amazing as well. Why?
It's like I was okay. Its hammer could kind of one-hit KO a lot of things, which was a bit boring.
Weighs 750 kilograms.
Yeah, it wasn't lightweight.
Oh my goodness me. That's amazing. What am I looking at? Cassius Chrome. What? That is terrifying.
It was also awful. It was just quick, basically. That's all it was.
That is a terrifying looking robot. That's not cool looking. That's just a bit terrifying.
That was the we've really run out of ideas
Yeah.
house robot.
Man, see, I must have watched the really early series, and then I wonder if it just got phased out of evening viewing in my household by the time we got to 7 and the extreme stuff.
Well, the 7th series went on to Channel 5.
Oh. Yeah, I bet when it moved, then it would have fallen out of rotation.
Yeah, I think it also may have changed time slot for Series 6. It almost certainly did for Series 7. I think it became Sunday night instead of Friday night, which was just plain weird. Man, this is really on topic for our Battlebots podcast, isn't it?
That's it. Growler is amazing. That is legitimately a stunning looking robot. I'd bring that one back as well. Bash. I want Sergeant Bash, and I want Growler. And I want
Technically, both had flamethrowers as well.
I know. And
Growler had basically an anus-mounted flamethrower.
I think the flamethrower is why neither of them are there, which is annoying. Mr. Psycho.
The thing is, no, the flamethrower was basically never used. It was used in one fight, and then I think they just disabled it for some reason.
Well, that's a bit lame, isn't it?
But it was too high up to hit anything anyway, so...
Yeah. Mr. Psycho is just massive.
I mean, original Killalot was, about 300, 350 kilos? Current Killalot is more up at that 700 or 800 range that Mr. Psycho was.
Insane. Makes Refbot look small. Refbot's head looks so much like C-3PO.
Yeah, it really does. Imagine if they just given Refbot a red arm. That'd be beautiful.
But 3PO in episode 1, unfortunately. Right,
I'm going to actively resist your attempts to bring Star Wars into this now. As much as I'm on board with it, it's just more fun to shut you down.
Take a seat. Right, shall we move on?
We shall get into the meat of the episode.
Okay.
We got a handful of robots left, so let's go talking about them and stuff.
Yeah, the last 8 robots.
It's been a wild ride. It's going to get wilder.
It occurs to me we did these in the wrong order as well.
I've got them in the right order.
No, I mean over the course of the last 4 episodes, we started with the series winner, and now we're here.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We get to end on a pretty good robot.
We do. We get to end on points. Oh wait.
So let's start off with Rotator, a robot that through the series we have referenced many times, and I have consistently misnamed it as various other robots. The worst being when I thought it was Counter-Revolution. But you can understand my confusion a little bit, I hope.
No, I can't. I remember all the robots from the old series and can't get the name of this one right.
Says Mr. Hypershock and Poison Arrow identical robots. This is a forgettable robot to me, even though it's visually very interesting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
In the same way that Counter-Revolution was only interesting for getting smashed up by Tombstone. It's just... Why the two-weapon thing? I don't like the two-weapon thing. The two-weapon thing is silly.
I think the two-weapon thing when you're going for kinetic energy weapons is silly. I think this is a running... Might be a bit of a running theme in a few robots in this episode is having a kinetic energy weapon that's not big enough or not massive enough. I think I think we talked about this with escape velocity as well. Halving your weight allowance per weapon is not the most effective way to design a kinetic energy weapon, really, is it?
I suppose the robot we saw it with most was Chromefly. And to be fair, I think we were a little bit harsh on Chromefly. After we recorded, I saw some of the damage that they'd done to Bronco. And they had, made a dent in it and torn a few holes, but nothing on the scale that we could be seeing from big spinners.
Yeah.
And Rotator, they've got 2 pretty big discs on there. So there's a fair bit of weight in those discs, but that means that something else has got to be suffering. All that weight has got to come from somewhere, whether it's armour, whether it's drive. You're always making a compromise as soon as you try and do that double spinner.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of obviously, splitting your weapon just means that each weapon is not nearly as effective as it could be. Again, if they basically took the back or one half of the robot off and then mounted it on top of it. So put both spinners on top of one another and have them both on the front of the robot. Like that would be a more effective weapon, if nothing else.
It'll be a more effective single weapon. Of course, there are advantages to doing it the way they have that presumably were desirable enough to them that they went for it. It's also made them slightly more unique, which in terms of getting accepted is obviously useful.
Yeah.
I like that they have at least mounted the weapons so that they do slightly different things.
Yeah.
One's always going to be undercutting, one's going to be coming in higher up. So that gives you some tactical options that you don't necessarily have with a single weapon. Whether that's enough to be worthwhile, I don't know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, coming up against something like Witch Doctor wasn't really the ideal place to showcase what it could do.
No.
Although, I was taking a look through their Facebook page, and it seems that they manufactured bars for their weapons instead of discs. Surely, in a fight against a vertical as a big horizontal, you put the bar on instead of the disc. Seems really weird to me that they went in with the discs for that fight.
Yeah.
Unless the bars just weren't there or weren't working or something else was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they just went with the discs look cooler.
That is also entirely possible, and I don't know how I would feel about that. I mean, winning looks cool as well. You could always try that. Winning is a really strong look.
It definitely is. I don't know. It's cool. I quite like the rotational symmetry it's got around its wheels, but there's not much going for it in terms of competitive advantage, really.
I think there are matchups with it that I would have liked to have seen. Seeing that come up against another horizontal that's working at a different level could have been quite interesting.
Yeah, I think they would have had the problem they had with Witch Doctor in all of their fights. So Witch Doctor removed one of their wheels pretty quickly, and I think they've got these huge chunky tyres on these tiny little wheel like hubs and stuff, and I think they're going to have that problem with basically anyone that they were going to fight, really. That
problem as in the wheels being quite weak, or...
Well, the wheels being exposed, quite easy to hit, and also quite weak. Yeah, I mean, having that huge rubber tyre means it's quite easy to yank the tyres off, I would have thought. So, I mean, anyone with a spinner, definitely they would struggle with, I think, for that. And even a few other weapon designs would, I think, pose a threat to them in that respect.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's any wheel design that would make that any less of a problem. I think it's more to do with the placement than anything. I'm not sure that having a larger tyre or a larger hub or a solid wheel or anything like that necessarily makes that situation better.
I mean, if you scaled up the hub in that wheel and had a much thinner bit of rubber basically around there that's not inflated in any way, there's no pneumatic tyre, it's just a block of rubber around it.
Was it definitely a pneumatic tyre?
Well, but having a tyre that big, I think, is easier to pull off the hub than a tyre that's very thin.
Maybe. The only justification I can think of for having a big tyre like that is the reason that PP3D had them, which is that it might help with their shock mounting.
Yeah, possibly.
For the drive.
I mean, in terms of how easy it is to get on and off, just to, draw on my experience building Lego, the Lego wheels and tyres with the fat tyres are so much easier to put together than the wheels with the really skinny tyres. And I think the same will be true in combat robots.
Well, Lego is known to scale up to a combat robot level.
Yeah, of course.
Oh dear, it's not grabbing me at all. Not in the way that Witch Doctor does. Because Witch Doctor is a robot that I can't help loving.
See, it's never stood out to me, man. Like, what do you love about it?
First of all, I've always loved the mini-bot, Shaman, especially when it used to fire green flames. That was excellent.
Yeah.
I really like the spinner design as well. If you're going to have an asymmetrical spinner design, you might as well make it look like something cool, and they've done that with that kind of skull design. And as much as it doesn't necessarily have that much of an effect on how the robot works, it's the kind of design detail that I like to see. The visuals in general, they've done a lot of work on, you know, in terms of the sort of paint job, things like that.
It's definitely
but there's
counts
also
as one of the colourful robots.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But there's also the little touches in the design, like the camber on the wheels, which is actually followed through in the body. The body kind of flares up at each side to accommodate that camber. I just really love the look of it. The only thing I don't like is the new weapon, where they've gone from a really thick, solid chunk of metal to the kind of two-joined discs with a pulley in the middle design that everyone else seems to be doing.
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of their new self-righting mechanism, because I have no idea why they didn't have that in the first place.
Yeah, that is a much chunkier looking disc in previous seasons.
I would imagine that weight cutting was part of it, and I imagine they've managed to keep it carrying roughly the same energy. I doubt it's affected them that much. I just love the idea of that big solid chunk hitting something rather than the sort of two teeth almost on the new one.
I wonder what the advantage of having the drive belt in the middle of that is as compared to having it to one side.
I don't know if there necessarily is an advantage. I mean, it is very well protected in there.
Yeah, I wonder if that's it. I mean, because you mentioned that a lot of people have done it, so like you sort of wonder is it just because it's a fashionable thing to do, or is there some advantage that I'm not seeing?
So the other ones I'm thinking of are things like Hypershock, Pulsar, those kind of designs. And a lot of those will have a double pulley in the middle, so I don't know if it makes it easier to have that redundancy. I think it also maybe helps you increase the effective width of your weapon without massively increasing the weight.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a consideration when they're doing this as well. And I imagine that if you're looking to do damage to armour, then having those two distinct teeth of limited width is going to give you better point pressure on what you're hitting than having that tooth being full width on a full drum.
It's one of those things that even at the kinds of energies these things are going at, it feels like it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how wide the tooth is. At that speed, as long as you hit it, you're going to do a bunch of damage.
Oh yeah, it may not. That's my very simplistic view of this. The other thing it is definitely going to let them do is have a larger diameter for their weight.
Yeah.
Which is going to help them get a faster tip speed.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, there must be advantages to it, or else not as many people would be doing it. It might also be that it's simply easier to make.
Yeah, people might also be drawn to the symmetry of it as well. You know, you get a more symmetric design, which they, of course, immediately throw away by having an off-center self-righting mechanism. But, you know.
Thing is, external symmetry for something like that will almost certainly lead to internal asymmetry. Because to get that pulley running centrally, it means you've got to have your motor off to one side. Whereas if you mount your motor fully centrally, it means the pulley's going to be off to one side. So there's going to be asymmetry either way round.
Yeah, when I said about symmetry and stuff, I sort of was meaning about like the external one. That's the one that matters. I feel like internal symmetry is not worth going for because that's just going to be a bunch of compromises for no reason. Whereas external symmetry is just visually pleasing.
I do wonder how much attention teams do pay to that kind of thing. Because I think in a lot of cases, asymmetry might actually be beneficial.
Like an externally asymmetric robot, why would that be beneficial? I can't imagine it makes a difference either way. I would go, this is purely an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, I've overstated that.
I mean, most robots are going to be left-right symmetrical just because it's easier to build them that way.
Yeah, also for weight distribution, I imagine that's helpful in terms of your handling when you're driving. You see, I was thinking about the kind of Sir Kill-A-Lot style of asymmetry with different weapons on each side. Yeah. But that then goes against the whole don't bother with two weapons thing we were just discussing.
I'm fine with two weapons. It's when you compromise one that requires a huge amount of weight, that's when you have a problem.
Is there any weapon that is as effective at a low weight as it is a high weight?
Probably not, unfortunately.
You could argue lifters, but you want a certain level of robustness within them.
I think some weapons work well with others. So, I mean, as Complete Control showed, like a clamp and grappling thing works well with a flamethrower.
Actually, flamethrowers wouldn't be dependent on weight. That's one.
No, I mean, flamethrowers...
You can have as many flamethrowers as you want, as long as you can carry the fuel for it.
Exactly. The weight dependency of that is how long can you keep them lit. But they work well, and you know, if armor wasn't quite as crazy as it is, the dead metal approach of a grapple and a saw, or the Red Devil one, and that kind of thing of that would be a reasonably effective pairing. Anything where you need to hold a robot and because your damage takes a little while to deliver would work well for having two weapon types. Really,
what you have there is weapons that are adding value to each other. Weapons that on their own would be basically ineffective.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas when you've got like the flipper with a tiny little spinning drum thing at the top, like Eruption does, then it's like that's not really doing anything, is it?
That's the I'm adding this to the robot so I get accepted to the next series weapon, that is.
Or the I've got two spinners for some reason, it's like, well, you could build a better robot if you just had one.
I'm very glad you mentioned Red Devil, because Witch Doctor probably had the best death of any robot this year. Going out in a puddle of lipo smoke.
Yeah.
If anything suits that robot, it is that visual. That kind of, death in a swamp kind of look.
Yeah, that's definitely the right team for that aesthetic, definitely.
Shall we move on to Rex?
If you insist.
See, In my head, I had this idealized thought that maybe you would love Rex. I'm guessing that's not the case.
Why on earth would you think I would love Rex? What goes through your brain where you think I'm going to look at that and go, oh yeah, that's a great robot?
I didn't think you would. I hoped you would.
It's a stupid robot. It's utterly inane.
I'm thinking that we leave the technical side of it alone for now, because we're going to get to that later. But as an idea, how can you not love the only robot in the competition with no dedicated locomotion system?
Because it's stupid. Like, it's so uncompetitive. It's just ridiculous. You can't control that robot at all. I just don't understand why you'd make that, why you'd enter it, why you'd think it could win any fight, let alone the competition. I mean, some robots I'm willing to allow to not be competitive because they have other advantages. They're technically impressive or look amazing or something. This is none of those things.
This is all of those things.
It's not. How is it? It's none of those things. It's stupid.
It is entirely groundbreaking. Well, actually, I think it was based on a middleweight or a lightweight, so that technically would have been the groundbreaking thing. But you know what I mean. You might not agree with it, but I'm sure you at least understand it.
It's not groundbreaking. It's just silly. It's just pointless.
Here is why you build a robot like this. You build it for the one time that it works. You build it for the moment in the previous series where it waddles its way slowly but surely over to an almost stranded Plan X and takes its side off. That's why you built this robot. You build it knowing it's not going to win very much. You build it for that 20-second clip of you doing something amazing. And that really appeals to me as a way of doing things. This is the age-old thing of not everyone is there to win. Not everyone is hyper-competitive. Some people just want to do what they do once or twice, prove the concept, and have fun with it.
Fine, whatever. I don't get it. I don't like it. I think it's a stupid, uncontrollable robot.
What it definitely is an extremely powerful weapon. That weapon, if it ever hits something, does some damage.
Yeah, but what's the point in being able to hit a stationary robot? I mean, if a robot is sat so still that you can waddle towards it, then it's lost anyway. It's pointless. What's the point in having an amazing weapon that you can't use unless you're using it on a dead robot? It's just silly.
The point is fun. Is that not a good enough reason for you? Fun? Are you anti-fun?
Fun is a good thing to have, but I do not think this is fun. I think this is, it's just a bit ridiculous.
You're trying to tell me that when you were watching the previous series, you didn't find it amusing when it actually worked once?
You've made a false assumption in my having watched the previous series.
Have you not? What?
What?
Why are you here?
I don't know. Why am I here?
What's the point of you?
I think over the last 10 episodes, we must have established by now that you are the one that knows all about robots, and I'm just along for the ride.
I just find it weird that you've watched this series but not the one before it.
Well, I don't know what to say, man. I've watched this one and not series 1. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to let you down.
If anything, what really surprises me is that you're not someone like me who, because they're doing this, wants more Robot Wars in their life. Is this enough for you? Because after doing this, I go away and I will watch 3 episodes of series 3 or something. That's why I have such a stupid memory for that stuff. It's not many years ago for me. It's a couple of weeks ago.
After recording this, I'm going to go to bed.
Adults. What's the point?
And then tomorrow I'm going to edit this show.
Hey, I spend time on show notes, which are written almost entirely while watching Robot Wars.
Everyone, you should all go and look at the show notes just to validate Ryan's effort.
They are rarely seen, but they are so much fun to write. The amount of... Oh, actually, here's the thing. We've just worked out some analytics stuff. I want to know the page views specifically on the images I've created. Like the image of Jellyfish destroying Lowry's version of Manchester. I'm more proud of that than anything I've ever made. It had lasers.
Oh dear. It did have lasers. It did have lasers.
What more do you want? Jellyfish firing lasers at unsuspecting factory workers. Oh, the tangents.
The tangents. And for the second week in a row, you've brought up Jellyfish and I haven't.
That's a very good point.
I'm winning.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'm just upset that you wouldn't like a robot that is more weapon than anything else.
Well, if it was more weapon than anything else, and then could also, go towards a robot in some reasonable time frame and then hit it with that weapon, that would be quite cool. But this cannot do that.
Rex is able to get halfway across the arena in 3 minutes. That's enough to hit an opponent. That's a reasonable time frame.
If it was left undisturbed, could it get across the entire arena inside of 3 minutes?
Yes, it could. Whether it would get to the bit it was aiming for is a slightly different question, because what does tend to happen is it does like to accidentally flip over and then just ride along on the weapon for a while.
Yeah, I was looking at this picture. I did wonder if it should have that shield thing on both sides. When they're controlling it, is this like a machine or like a computer-assisted thing where they say go forwards and it's got some clever programming? I mean, as I'm saying this, I know what the answer is going to be, and it's no. But has it got clever programming to do all the articulation to move in a direction for it, or are they just wiggling a stick backwards and forwards to rotate the back feet things?
I can't help thinking that even the most basic level of automation would be wasted on Rex. You literally just wiggle the thing at the back and that makes it move.
But like, if it had the clever automation, then it would have something going for it for me, wouldn't it? It would be, it's got like clever software and algorithms in there to allow you to go forwards without wheels.
I think what they should do is go down the kind of Obweld and Overlord or Crustacean sort of way of doing things, and get like maybe just like a little plastic penguin which has all the sensors required to sense when it's being tipped, and they can just waddle that to side to make the robot waddle all the same.
Well, I think like when you're a kid or a 24-year-old and you and you move your arms around like you're an aeroplane. Well, I say like I'm a kid, but then, or like you're a kid, but I do this sometimes. Where you're an aeroplane, right? And you can like fly around with your arms out. Just do that, moving your arms up and down to move the back thing.
I would love to see the whole team in the control booth just frantically flying around. Ideally making the noises as well.
All stood there.
Perhaps they could base the weapon speed off of the loudness of their noise. Actually, hang on. This is something I've been genuinely thinking about. Because I've been looking at the rules for HeberCon. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
It's basically a competition for intentionally terrible robots.
Okay.
And I was trying to think how I could enter this in a way that was still technologically interesting. Because what most people do is just get some motors, attach random things to it and call that a silly robot. I want to do something legitimately silly. Here's what I want to make. I want to make a relatively normal robot with tank-style steering.
Yeah.
And instead of using a stick to control the speed of those motors...
When you say tank-style steering, by the way, do you mean like in terms of your controlling, or in terms of the way the robot moves? Like, are you when you like, because you said this a few times, and most robots with 4 wheels turn tank-style because they drive one side forwards and one side backwards, but most of them don't have like the left stick controlling only the left wheels and the right stick only controlling the right wheels. Is that what you mean when you talk?
That is exactly what I mean by tank-style steering. I think that's the accepted idea of what that means. If not, okay. I apologise to the masses.
Well, that's fine. I mean, this is just for my own clarification. You're talking about a control scheme more than the mechanics of how the robot moves.
Yeah. So I want that. And instead of controlling each side's drive with the stick, I want 2 people controlling it, one controlling each side with a microphone, controlling the speed of that motor with the pitch of their voice.
The pitch of their voice, my goodness.
So you literally have to sing the robot into action.
You could have like 2 people on like exercise bikes.
Yes.
Because they've got so much momentum in the wheels
you could do it.
that you wouldn't be able to like quickly change the speed of each side. It's so unresponsive.
See, just something stupid like that I would love to put together. I don't have anywhere near the technological expertise to do it, but I have lots of stupid ideas if they're ever needed. Oh man, the tangents. The tangents are so real.
I'm going to get even further now. On the Programmer Humour subreddit, there's often like posts of ridiculous ways to do volume control.
Oh, I love these.
Like little catapult things, like how long you hold the thing down and use like catapult a little ball onto a volume bar. Or how quickly you can tap something and stuff.
Yep. Digits of pi I quite enjoyed as well.
I think I saw one where it was based on how fast you were cranking something. They set up like a hand crank on their desk, and depending on how fast they were turning that dictated the volume.
And the worst thing is, I feel like you technically have the skills to do this.
Fair, probably. Probably.
Let's see what weird features you can add to our website.
How would you do that? I guess you could put like a little motor on there, drive it with a hand crank. That would generate a voltage which you could read. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, you could do it in such a way. Hang on, because bear in mind, with Hebocon, they're not bothering with stuff like remote control. You could literally have a batteryless robot and just generate the power to each motor. That's pretty good.
You'd have this tiny little robot tethered to 2 big exercise bikes.
Okay, real talk. There is one of these every April in Newbury.
Dude.
Just saying. Spinnerproof podcast Hebocon edition. Coming at Easter.
Yes.
Well, there's no coming back from this. I mean, we were talking about tank-style steering, so let's go to a tank-style robot.
Very good, very good. Red Devil. I really like this robot.
This robot is taking mobility to a whole new level. Now, if we're going to talk about getting confused between robots, I started off getting this quite badly confused with Razorback.
Yep.
Because in the grabber configuration, they are very similar.
Yep.
But Red Devil has the advantage of being significantly better.
Yeah, Red Devil is a good robot.
Red Devil has the grabber and does something else interesting with it, with the saw.
Yeah.
This is the robot that they would have made if they wanted Dead Metal to actually be competitive.
Has it got a speaker grill on the side of it?
Oh, what, sorry?
If you look at the picture of Red Devil on the Battlebots.com website, it looks like it's got a speaker grill on the side of it.
I'm getting there.
Your laptop. Buy a new laptop.
I've only just got a job. Oh, you mean like by the back wheels? There's a little sort of set of holes.
Yeah, it looks like a speaker grill.
I would imagine that is something to do with cooling.
I would imagine so too.
You see, I thought you meant the bits that are kind of like wheel hubs look like speakers or something, but
I mean,
I kind of see what you're getting at.
I mean, those hub bits look like the kind of gaudy speakers that you might put in a car as an aftermarket mod. But...
in a stolen Vauxhall Nova. Well, way to derail us, and we just got back on track, Sam, talking about speakers.
You were talking about this versus Dead Metal.
Yeah, as I say, this is the competitive Dead Metal.
Yeah.
This is actually clamping and sawing something in a way that is effective and not just there to throw sparks.
Yeah.
Did you just, like, kill a fly or something?
No, I took a drink.
Oh, okay.
Kill a fly?
I thought something was buzzing around. You just, like, clap caught it. I don't know.
With one hand. Just...
Bruce Lee style. Just get some chopsticks out.
Between my finger and third chopsticks. Oh, dear.
It's a shame. I really like Red Devil, but I don't actually have that much to say about it because it's just good and effective.
Yeah.
And it died to the worst robot in the world, Bombshell.
It died, like, Bombshell lost its weapon quite quickly as well in that fight, I think. And so Red Devil lost to a judge's decision because I think Red Devil just couldn't. I think Bombshell's ground clearance is such that Red Devil just couldn't grab it, couldn't get under it to make a decent grab. So in the end, it went into the judges and they gave it to Bombshell, which was unfortunate. But yeah, bit of a lame way to go out, really. But it is an amazing robot. I think it's very, very iconic. I love the way it looks, and I really like the sort of like the saw that goes in between the two claw things on the clamp and stuff. It's just a really cool robot.
I think it's really good for letting the drivers get a slightly more precision strike, which is what got them the win against Red Devil, against themselves. It was what got them a win against Witch Doctor, really. I don't know if they were targeting that battery compartment. If they were, that's genius. I hope they were, or else it kind of devalues my point, in fact.
I think the teams know a lot about the inner workings of all the other robots, so they would have known that that's where the batteries were. And it seems like a sensible place to go for if you know that that's there.
I'd like to think they did it on purpose. And I like to think that, you know, the Witch Doctor scene wouldn't have minded that they knew that and targeted it. You know, but I'm just rewatching this fight because I'd basically blocked it from my memory. And yeah, Bombshell loses its weapon on basically the first hit.
Yeah, it loses it so quickly. It's just a fight of just I've got bashy written here. They're just ramming into each other.
I don't know why that's amusing to me. It just is. Bashy,
bashy
bashy.
fight. Yeah, you get those bashy fights sometimes.
So you're saying it was a test of driving skill?
You say that as if that's a significant thing. What are you getting at?
I just wanted to find another way of saying bashy that wasn't that.
Look, there is nothing wrong with the phrase bashy.
Nothing inherently wrong with it, no. The biggest issue I'm seeing watching this fight is that as much as they have lots of different ways to sort of move the robot around in terms of the weapon segment and the drive segments, they actually really struggle to get it back into its proper orientation for the weapon to be effective.
Yeah, that is the big weakness. It's a bit unbalanced. It can only right itself in one kind of way, which is a shame.
Well, it can kind of right itself in lots of ways. That's, I think, the thing that's tricky. I don't know. It must be quite a hard thing to control properly, because you've got to get that relationship between the weapon module and the drive modules correct to get the weapon actually on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I say it's quite, the balancing is it. So if you imagine it's got its claw out one direction and then the thinner end of its tracks out the other way, so it's sort of like as long as it can be. It's a bit hard. It's sort of like not necessarily clear which way. I don't know. I think it's sometimes it's not weapon heavy enough to guarantee the way that will all fit. I don't know. It's weird. I think you're right. They do struggle to get it to go back the right way up with the weapon on the correct plane and stuff. It's not. It's complicated.
Of course, in theory, if you got that right, you could give your weapon. You could have your weapon literally riding along the ground very easily.
Yeah.
So you're saying about the ground clearance on Bombshell. In theory, that doesn't have to be an issue.
Well, in terms of Red Devil getting underneath it, like it's only got one side of its weapon that's close to the ground, and it's not close enough.
True, yeah. I suppose the issue is more them getting it oriented with the ground rather than it being on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, they can get it on the ground. They just, they put it that way and then lift the front of their tracks up a bit, and then it's resting on the front of the robot. And that's scraping the floor, and it's still wasn't enough, I don't think. I wonder if the front of their claw isn't sharp enough, if it doesn't come down to a fine enough point.
Of course, we all know what they really need to win. All they need to do is bring a big enough flag and wave that around. That's how you win. That's how Bombshell did it. Just big flag waving. Oh, Red Devil, you were so beautiful. We could have seen so much more of you.
It would have been nice. Up next, we have Splatter.
Why?
Splatter. I mean, what a name. Splatter. Why would you call a robot Splatter?
To be fair, it does look like someone just threw a load of paint down and this is what happened. It's like, just make it orange and make it curvy. That was the design brief.
Yeah. It's almost got like the shape of, the classic old American cars. The really big, like the huge wheel arches on the old cars and stuff.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. It sort of has a nice retro-futuristic shape to it as well.
Yeah, exactly that kind of thing, yeah. The like the Fallout aesthetic and stuff like that. It's if you've ever played Fallout. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is weird. I don't think we see many sort of like curvy robots. Most of them are quite angular.
Well, that's because most of them are made out of reasonable materials for robot building.
What's the armour in this one made out of?
Okay. The information I have claims a titanium and Kevlar shell, but it broke like fiberglass.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, fiberglass seems like the most likely thing to be able to get that kind of shape. I think putting metal into that shape would take a lot of effort.
Yeah, we'd be back to the whole hydroforming discussion we had in, like, the first episode.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is, they've gone for this really complicated shape. It's not even an effective shape. It's absolutely ideal for a spinner to come and hit those nicely vertical sides.
Yeah.
Vertical and brittle. The weapon isn't the absolute worst idea I've ever seen.
It's not the absolute worst. No, I mean you could have a linear clamp, but I mean once again you've got a spinner that has been compromised by the fact that a lot of the weight has gone into putting it on a lifting arm. Kinetic weapon again that's been compromised for reasons unknown to me.
Says the guy that proposed a deployable spinner. Not that dissimilar to this in concept.
Look. A deployable spinner would be awesome. A tiny little spinning disc thing on a lifting arm is less awesome.
It's a nice idea because there's some versatility in the way that you can use it. So you can use it like a normal little vertical spinner. I think they tried to call it a drum, but it's not. Its radius is greater than its width. So it's not a drum by my book. So that's one way to use it. They could also kind of bring it down like a spinny hammer, which I don't imagine being that effective. You know, you can imagine it kind of just bouncing off. But
I bet that would be quite good to sort of like hit the mechanism of Beta's hammer, for example. If you've got like a robot where there's a lot of stuff on the top that's exposed, being able to bring a spinner down on top of that would be quite good, I think.
If it's coming down onto something smooth, you don't imagine it getting the bite it would need.
No.
But something like that, where there is actual machinery and workings, you know, something like Red Devil as well, it might be able to bring it down onto the saw and disable that.
Yeah.
So in the right matchup, maybe it's got a chance of doing something, but the right matchup is hard to find for this thing.
I think having a robot and then just banking entirely on getting the right matchups is a bit is probably a bit bold.
See, this is one of those things where I do struggle to see the point of this robot. With something like Rex, I could look at that and say, okay, it's not competitive, but when it works, it's going to be awesome. Or with Jellyfish, as you've now alluded to as well, so I feel like I can go for it. There was a very strong design principle behind that was a concept they kind of wanted to prove. Splatter has none of that. It's just a thing that exists.
I think my favourite thing I've just spotted on the Battlebots website about Splatter, the team captain Jeff is the person that built the robot in The Big Bang Theory. You know, when they build a combat robot.
I don't watch The Big Bang Theory.
You don't watch Big Bang?
And I'm proud to announce that.
That's fair enough. Okay, I do watch Big Bang Theory. In one episode, they have a combat robot thing, and Jeff is apparently the person that built both of them. Built the one that the gang, if you will, built, and also the one that what's his face, Barry Kripke, built as well. Yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing about this.
In honour of The Big Bang Theory, Sam in the edit will now add canned laughter. If that isn't there, I'm going to be upset, Sam. I'm going to be really upset. If that's just us being awkwardly silent while you snigger slightly, I'm not going to be happy.
Where am I going to find canned laughter?
In a can?
I will say on Big Bang Theory that the early series are much better than the more recent ones.
That is absolutely correct. The first series and a half are watchable. But I won't get into it right now because many people have covered that ground before me and done it far better than I will.
Should we move on to Warrior Clan?
Do we have to?
We do have to. It's on the list. We've got to talk about Warrior Clan. Yet another of the Team Waiachi robots. I feel like they have millions.
Why do they get to make 2 entries? They don't even they're changing their shirts to look like different teams.
No, they don't. I mean, Warrior Clan has Team Waiachi written across the front of the robot.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Are they like big names or like
They are big names.
grandfathered in? They can do what they want.
That is pretty much it, yeah. That is basically the reason as far as I can tell. And to be fair, they have brought 2 interesting robots. This is more interesting than Son of Waiachi in basically every single respect.
Definitely, yeah.
But at the same time, I still don't like it. So, the flipper thing is something we discussed before in our alternative ways of powering flippers. It seems to work quite well for them. I'd argue that the spinner is far more effective than the flipper, but it's nice to have it there. In terms of variety in the field, it adds something, even if it doesn't bring a variety of, humans. They've gone with the big flame-throwing drone to replace their tiny mini-bots. There's stuff there that makes it vaguely interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't get over how small it is. It's a remarkably small, compact robot. Very, very low. It's I don't know. It's amazing they've packed so much stuff into that.
And that top armor also looks like it is incredibly thick.
Yeah, like they're not messing about with that.
The top armour is armour there. The spinner is also thick. So in terms of defensively, it's very solid. That said, I've just realised... Hang on a second.
Hang on 1 second.
There's a classic fight. Oh, no, it's not a classic fight. Or is it? I'm not doing that again, don't worry. Was that from this series? Did Warrior Clan go against Nightmare this series?
No.
No, that is from the series before. Fantastic battle, well worth watching. I'll put it in the show notes. Would you like to see it now?
Let's do it. Let's do some live commentary. Let's see if I can channel my Jonathan Pierce and see what happens.
If I can remember how computers work. There you go. Have a link.
Am I going to deafen myself doing this? No.
I did that earlier. It wasn't fun.
No. Well, I'm good. Right, I've hit play. I'm going to struggle to talk while other people are talking in this video.
I've got it muted.
Is sound not an important thing to you?
Well, yeah, but, situationally.
I have muted
This is from last series, back when they had the little wedgie mini-bots.
Yeah, 2 little wedge things.
I'd like to think we start at the same point. We might be watching at different points of this already. Has your fight started yet?
No, they're sort of doing all the needless panning around the battle box.
Oh, we get mildly dramatic shots of the people in their control booths.
Red, green. It's
Oh,
just
wow, we are
started.
in exactly the same place. This is amazing.
Oh, wow. So the little mini bot. I mean, they got 3 people needing to drive it.
This is one of those robots where the mini-bot swarming actually looks vaguely effective. In that this is an already unstable bot. If you can get in and disturb any of its motion, it's going to struggle. Until, there we go.
Who's got the flamethrower? Was that the little mini bot with the little flamethrower?
Yeah, the Wedgie mini-bots have flamethrowers. That was the whole fuel source going up as it was smashed to pieces.
Yeah. And there's Nightmare beating itself. Oh, can it? This is not the version of Nightmare that can sort of articulate around, is it?
No, this has more the sort of version of self-writing that things like Current Bite Force and Old Witch Doctor use, which is basically use the weapon as a wheel, try and drive into the wall and hope that flips you over. As self-writing systems go, it's a dodgy one.
It's not the most effective thing in the world.
It's also the Rake system, actually.
Yeah. Oh dear, stuck under the hammer. What was it, the pulverizer? Is that what they call it?
That's what they try to call it, because that's cool.
Man, they've bent like that. Like Nightmare has bent the armor on Warrior Clan there, like on the back of it.
Absolutely, and that's the reason that I wanted to take a look at this clip, because this is what eventually happened to Warrior Clan this series as well, up against Hypershock.
Yeah.
That just gradual peeling away of the top like some kind of can.
Yeah. I wonder if there's some laughter in that robot.
It shows that, you know, when you look at the thickness of that metal, regardless of what metal it even is, really, the power in these weapons is mad. And the one weakness it has defensively is that it offers up some really nice bite points.
Yeah. It is a shame. And like Nightmare, I think, is particularly well suited to peeling it open.
I'd argue almost entirely against that, actually. Nightmare is very poorly suited for that because whenever Nightmare hits something, it tends to hit very low down the disc. You know, it hits at the disc's lowest point almost. So instead of hitting something and lifting, it's hitting and pushing away. I
can see that. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, Nightmare have peeled it open. They have opened the back of it up. So I don't know.
If we want to get into the principles of vertical spinner design for a second, there's a very good reason that most verticals use some kind of feeder wedge. And that is that there's a specific point in the rotation of that disc that you want it to hit things. So if you imagine a clock face and the spinner is rotating clockwise, you want it to be hitting somewhere between, and I need to look at a physical clock here because apparently I don't use clocks very often. You want to be hitting somewhere around sort of 7 o'clock to maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock. That's the sort of zone that you want it to be hitting in. Because if it's hitting down around 6 o'clock, which it is in this case, I would argue, you're putting a lot of force back through the weapon.
I don't think it is. I make the argument that the size of that disc and the low height of Warrior Clan means that it is hitting at around 7 o'clock.
I think it's hitting at like 6:45 maximum. And of course, you know, the later on the clock it's hitting, up to the point of 9 o'clock, the better, really, because you're transferring more of that energy, you know, more of that recoil energy from you into the ground, which means that more is then going into the target. If it's hitting down at that sort of 6 o'clock point, it's shoving you backwards. It's putting a lot of unwanted stress on the disc as well, because it's giving the sort of most, and this is where my terminology falls down, it gives the most stopping force it could to it. A strike at that 6 o'clock point is going to slow the disc more than one at any other.
That makes no sense to me.
Maybe it doesn't make any sense to anyone. Maybe it doesn't even make sense to me, but I know vaguely what I mean. There may be a diagram. There's probably going to be a diagram. I haven't done a diagram for a couple of episodes.
I would have thought that at 9 o'clock would be more likely to slow it down just because it's got to lift the robot, whereas at like 6 it's just pushing a robot.
I can see that.
So I think there would be more force imparted backwards later on. I think, like, just to go like full physicist, in a vacuum in no gravity and whatever, I think it wouldn't make any difference where it hit, right? There's no reason for it to make a difference because it's rotationally symmetrical infinite ways because it's a circle. Whereas in the real world, like in terms of, you know, if you're hitting at 9 o'clock, you're lifting a robot straight up, like a potentially 100 kilograms straight up, versus just pushing 100 kilograms along the floor. Which again, like, I mean, that might, you know, that would depend on whether or not the drive on the opposing robot is active and stuff. I don't know.
Bear in mind, if you hit something when your tooth is at 9 o'clock, you're going to launch it upwards, but you're then going to be out of contact with that robot. If you hit at 6 o'clock, you're going to be in contact with that robot until beyond 9 o'clock anyway. So you're going to have a lot more contact time. So there's going to be more time that mass is acting against your spinner. There's every chance that I am going down a completely wrong road here. This is what intuitively makes sense to me. There's every chance there are people listening to this who actually know what they're talking about and can correct one or both of us.
I think we should move on from physics.
This isn't physics, this is clocks.
This is physics.
Well, I was having fun with it.
Fine. Email Ryan.
I honestly thought you were about to give out my email address there. At Drivelling Moron on Twitter, because I know how bad I am.
Well, there you go. Warrior Clan fight Hypershock in this series, which leads to an amazing moment.
Oh, yes.
So Warrior Clan have a little flame-throwing drone thing, and Hypershock decide to try and deal with that. They're going to attach a rake to one of the articulating arms on their robot. And everyone, including me, when watching that, was like, there's no way in hell they're ever going to hit that drone out of the sky. And then they hit that drone out of the sky, and it's majestic.
I mean, majestic is a strong term.
It's brilliant. How
It isn't the kind of thing that would be like at home on planet Earth. It is one of the all-time great moments of robot combat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is up there with the head spinning across the arena, and
Absolutely.
and all
Made all the better because I really don't like drones.
but it's got a flamethrower.
You see,
No,
this fits in with my philosophy of robots in general, that I love seeing something cheap and basic work.
Yeah.
There is nothing less technologically advanced in this competition than a rake on a stick. The only way it could be better is if they just like duct taped it onto the existing arm instead of like making a proper mounting for it.
I feel like it wasn't far off being duct tape. It looked like they just like rammed a rake down a pipe and attached that.
Maybe I remember it being far more technologically advanced, but I think I'm remembering a kind of Hollywood version of this moment.
A dramatic reconstruction.
Hypershock versus Warrior Clan. Technically, I think we're supposed to refer to this robot as Warrior Dragon. I'm not going to do that.
Why is that?
Because Warrior Clan was the version with the little wedgy flame-throwing mini-bots.
Yeah, but it's called Warrior Clan brackets S2 on the Battlebots website, so I'm going to go with that.
But on the Team Waiachi website, I think they refer to it as Warrior Dragon.
Well, what do Team Waiachi know?
What do they know about their own robot's name?
Yeah, what do they know about it? It's not as if they built it or anything.
Oh, sorry, I'm just watching the moment again. What I love more than the first hit is the second little "and stay down" kind of tap on their head. Absolutely beautiful.
It is a good moment.
Yeah, as much as I can complain about not liking a couple of the robots in this series, as much as we can complain about a couple of judges' decision, it gave us a lot of memorable moments like that. We've got the head spin, we've got Rake versus drone, we've got the poison arrow drone coming in and trying to save the main robot.
Yeah, that was good.
We've got complete control, roasting bombshell. We just got so much good stuff. Everything Chomp did, like everything.
A very, very fun series in general. Sorry, very fun season.
Oh yeah, sorry, I think I got that wrong as well, didn't I? How dare we?
No respect for American English there. Ridiculous.
I think what you mean there is the correct level of respect for American English. Shall we ultraviolent?
Let's ultraviolent.
Excellent, that's done. Now Hypershock. Is there anything interesting about ultraviolent apart from the lighting?
No.
Okay, Hypershock. I'm not even joking. Let's just do this. I don't care about ultraviolent.
Well, I feel a bit bad because I mean they're the only robot we've not talked about.
True, yeah.
It's got 6 wheels. It's got 2 weird lifting arm things. It seemed to get stuck on them, and it lost very quickly to Hypershock.
Ultraviolent is the second best breakdancing robot in the series after Beta. There you go. We've thrown it a bone there. Now I feel better moving on. Hypershock.
I'm looking at the picture of this on the Battlebots website. It looks nothing like Poison Arrow.
You're not wrong.
It's not even green in these pictures.
I don't know where you got that from.
Oh, I have nothing. I got nothing for you. Like, got nothing.
To be fair, when it actually went into the competition, it was a little bit more green.
Yeah, it
The
definitely
Rake
had green.
was green. The wheels were green.
It had green highlights.
The logo was green.
Yeah.
It's a non-standard drum spinner, is what it is, really.
Does this count as a drum then?
No, but still. They would call it a drum.
It's a non-standard wedge flipper.
It's a non-standard Razor clone. By that logic.
It's got the little hook things on the top.
It is technically a drum because the bit that the pulley is on is still very wide. So really what you've got is a drum with the two discs that act as teeth. So the rotating mass has a radius less than its width. So I will accept it as a drum.
I'm gonna get some like models going. I'm gonna see how far I can push your definition of drum.
Mate, if you want to do some model making to match mine, that is fine by me.
I was thinking like CAD, but I can do it physically if you want.
Well, I mean, you decide which is more fun, You decide which is more fulfilling for you as a human.
I mean, CAD is quite good fun.
It is, to be fair, it really
just out of
is.
curiosity, then, so if you had like a Minotaur, is that the right one?
Yes.
Yes, a Minotaur drum, and then put a very long like stick on it, is that still a drum spinner?
What do you mean by put a long stick on it?
Well, like, so if you had that drum, and then on either side, for example, you put these two discs like Hypershock and those discs have a bigger diameter than the width of the drum in the middle, is that still a drum spinner? Or is that two discs very far apart?
The main issue I would have there is that the discs are so far apart that you're not more likely than not to hit an opponent with them.
Okay, so that counts as two discs very far apart then. That's not a drum.
That's just a very long axle at that point. Does the drum still have the tooth on it that it has, though?
Yeah. I'm talking exactly that drum, but with two big discs on the sides.
Oh yeah, that's just a really stupid drum. But no, but think about it. The whole width of that is a sort of attack surface, if that makes sense. If an opponent hits that, it's going to hurt them. Whereas what we've got with the Hypershock style thing is we've got basically just a pulley assembly in the middle, a wide axle.
Yeah.
That is completely smooth. If you hit that, you might get a friction burn, and that's it. There's no tooth on there trying to do damage. That whole assembly is not trying to do damage. It simply carries the thing that does.
Okay.
Next theoretical. Come on, let's do this.
Interesting thing.
Give me another idea so I can shoot it down.
If you had a drum and you mounted it 90 degrees to the usual, had it like vertical.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that? If you had basically like a horizontal spinner that's very, very tall. If you took like Hypnodisc's disc and then extruded it up until it was until it was longer than its diameter.
I mean, it's technically a drum.
It's technically a drum.
You're eliminating any potential difficulties with gyro dancing. It's got that going for it.
That's
what
true.
I wouldn't mind seeing,
a full body drum.
that's just what a really tall full body spinner would be anyway.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't mind seeing is kind of, and this would work with discs as well, but like counter-rotating drums that just pull something in to be crushed. So, they're not going at speed, they're very high torque, and they just crush a robot as it goes in.
There's definitely like big
Basically a
industrial
shredder.
machines. Yeah, there's big industrial machines that can just chew apart basically anything.
Yes. I want someone to put one of those into Battlebots or Robot Wars. Screw the weight limits, it'll have to be a walker, but...
A very, very, very slow walker. That'd be quite funny.
Or just an arena hazard that's that. The ultimate pit.
I mean, the screw things, if you're caught in them wrong, aren't far off it in many ways. Like
Apart from
those,
their complete
but
lack of torque.
Yeah. With more torque, they would have a similar effect.
And yet they don't.
Well, They can't have battles being won by the arena.
Yeah, that's what Robot Wars does, basically.
Yeah.
Should we get back to Hypershock for a second? If I may divert us that far.
Okay then.
It is a surprisingly good defensive design. They've got that really heavy plough on the back to protect the back. They've got the big weapon protecting the front. And then pure driving skill protecting the sides. This is a deceptively hard robot to hurt, I think.
Yeah, I'm just noticing it seems to have like an exposed little bit of drivetrain on the back wheels.
What, in terms of chains?
Yeah, there's a little chain or something that's driving the back wheel there that's exposed, which is interesting. I'm surprised that's not like internally driven.
What are you seeing here? Because I'm not seeing it.
So on the official Battlebots website,
Yes.
there's like 2 pictures of it.
Yes.
If you look at the picture of it with the team
Yes.
and look at its back left wheel, and it's got like a little, looks like there's the drive.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
On there, yeah.
This also has the kind of wheels that you don't like, where there's as much rubber as there is hub.
Yeah, it does. It does have exactly that problem.
Well, it's clearly rubbish.
Worthless robot. Send it back.
Ribbit.
Ribbit.
Hey, it's a shame it's not green. It could then be a ribbit. It's the worst joke I've made to date.
I mean, how can you complain about some of the horrible puns and things that I've done and then do that? I mean...
Because I know that mine are bad. I do it with a level of self-awareness that you don't match.
Look, everything I say is funny. See, even the statement, everything I say is funny, has made you laugh. I mean, you know, I'm a comedian, naturally.
Your talents are wasted here. Now, this is the point where we were going to go through a bunch of the unused reserves, and then we realised that only one of them was interesting. So, we're not going to talk about Ambush, the Dentist, Praying Mantis, Road Rash, or Clockwork L'Orange. You like my pronunciation there?
I did like that. Can I just say that the one picture of Clockwork L'Orange I've seen is ridiculous.
Are you about to make me a liar by talking about it? Because you're welcome to.
I had nothing else to say about it other than that. I think we should talk about Hella Chopper.
Oh, Hella Chopper. This is like the moment at the end of an episode of Bullseye, where the contestants have gone through the final round, they've gambled and they've lost, and they're seeing what they could have won. This is the robot we could have been watching. This is the son of Waiachi that we really deserved. This is, or would have been, one of the most ridiculous robots to have ever competed anywhere.
I mean, I'm just looking at the picture of this, and the more I look at it, the more insane it is. It's got omni wheels. It looks like it's got... I mean, right, so the big thing is it's got a huge, like 3 hammers that it spins around above it. It
gets better than that.
Tell me more.
I'm going to do my best to do this robot justice, but I'm going to struggle.
If there is any video... I'm going to look on YouTube. There must be a video.
There are
listing.
videos. Wait until I've explained first, though.
Okay.
So this is a hyper-powered overhead spinner. It has 2 weapon setups.
I've just seen the other one.
And by far the most interesting, is the 3 hammers.
Yeah.
These are big, I believe, titanium hammers. They all weigh an insane amount. Each of them is mounted on a set of retractable cables.
What?
So when it starts spinning up, those cables are extended to a length that I can't remember.
Dude, why?
We're talking
was this not in there?
speeds over 300 mile an hour. And the idea is that when it hits something, the cable flexes.
Yeah.
And the force is not transferred through to the robot. They claimed that I believe the cable would be back to full extension within a rotation.
Why was this not entered? Why? What happened? What happened? What happened?
Okay.
I must know.
First things first, there were significant safety concerns over the strength of the cables. The team are very confident they would have been fine. They were massively overrated for the job they were doing, but obviously safety people will be safety people. There were also concerns that the box was not strong enough to handle it. So they were asked to do a few separate testings. Some of those testings went quite badly wrong and things caught fire and things. They were eventually told that they might be able to enter if they only used the other setup, which was a more traditional sort of spinner setup with blades that didn't have the whole cable thing.
Yeah.
They went in to test that setup one last time. Because the Battlebox had all been painted by this point, they couldn't use this in the test arena. Test arena wasn't strong enough. They had to go in the proper arena for it. Because everything had been painted up, they were asked to put cloths over the sharp bits. One of the cloths flew off during testing, got sucked into the robot, and just wrecked basically everything.
Oh, that is...
So they were too damaged to compete. They did get it fixed, I believe, at the event, but it was far too late. If this robot ever sees combat, ever sees the light of day, this could do what Hypnodisc did to Robot Wars, if you see what I mean by that.
Yeah. That's just incredible. I'm watching a test video now. I love the wheels. I love Omni wheels. The more I see robots with Omni wheels, the more I know they are amazing and more people should do them.
The whole robot is just a fantastic exercise in what might be possible.
Those blade things are insane. The reach on that robot, and the blades come down to nearly the floor and stuff. That's mad.
It would be practically unfightable. I believe the little sort of finger things as well between the wheels, I believe they're magnetic to try and give a little extra grip, a little extra downforce.
Wow.
The whole thing just to see it once, just to see it self-destruct in battle would have been amazing.
Is there? Oh man, he's actually spinning. Oh god, he's spinning it up inside his house.
Yes, I have.
I really hope he's not in the same room as that.
If it's the video I've seen, it's a low enough speed test that I wasn't going to worry too much about it.
Did you see on the Reddit today? There's a video of some team testing their vertical spinner outside. They all just sort of stood casually around it while they drive it into a pile of wood.
Yes,
That's
I have
mad.
seen that, and I am not impressed.
That's just mad. Why on earth would you do that?
I'm not going to get as angry about it as I did with the last one because, these are at least adults doing adult stuff and taking adult risks, but that's not good. That's not a thing you should do.
I saw that it's Garfi something or other in the Reddit commented the correct approach to testing these things is put them in a sealed room with a camera, take yourself out of the room, do your weapon test, stop it all, come back in and review the footage. Which is definitely the right way to go about that.
I see. It's one of those things where different people have different ideas of what they consider an acceptable risk for them.
Yeah.
And to me, people are absolutely fine to take those risks as long as there's a sort of acceptance of it. But I also worry what it would do for the sport if there was a big news story about someone basically killing themselves building and testing. It wouldn't be helpful for anyone.
Well, I think the sport would survive it. Video games survive despite the fact that the media keeps blaming all violence on them. So I think we'll be all right.
Very true. Very true. How long until Robot Wars gets blamed? Probably be the day when someone kills someone with an actual fighting robot, I suppose.
Too depressing to think about. Found another video that looks like it's on a handheld camera of them spinning up. It claims low speed testing with the hammers actually spooled out, spinning it up. I mean, a handheld camera. That's just mad. Why would you be anywhere near that thing when it spins up? That is a beautiful robot as well. I'd love to see this thing in combat. I absolutely would love to see this in combat.
Well, you're out of luck.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but it is beautiful.
And maybe if there is a Series 3, which we all hope there is, maybe it will be there.
Yeah, hopefully. Come on, America. You can make Series 3 of Battlebots. I believe in you.
I'm glad that the final robot we've spoken about is that. I'm glad we've ended there. Well, not ended, but ended the robot bit there.
An optimistic look to the future. I mean, that would just be so cool to see that thing with those hammers hit something.
For now, we can just watch the Son of Waiachi Creepy Crawlies pre-qualifier and just use that to imagine what would happen if this thing hit a heavyweight. Of course, it might be that it turns out to be absolutely terrible, but it looks like it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Right, is it time for Armchair Engineering?
It is time.
And today I think it's fair to say we're going to be getting back into that physics place.
Yes. Now, I believe last time you promised us an explanation of gyroscopic precession.
Yes, and I'm going to make you wait. So the topic we're going for today is what has been titled Alternative Forms of Locomotion, but I am calling Not Wheels. So we've had a good example of a wheelless robot today so far in Rex. And we've kind of spoken about a couple of other things. We've specifically spoken about cam shuffling so far this series.
Yep.
Now, you have some very limited experience of this, I'm going to optimistically say.
So when I was younger, I built a robot out of Lego. I built several robots out of Lego. One of the ones I built out of Lego is, I think, what you would call a cam shuffler. So it would lift. It was a very boxy robot. It would lift its body, shuffle it forwards a bit, and then bring its two sled things forwards, and then do that again, and it would move in a straight line. I didn't get quite as far as making it able to rotate. It was just like one fixed axle across that was driving both sides at the same time. So it would shuffle forwards and backwards, and that was it. And I've also, I think, out of Meccano, built robots that have that I think is still technically cam shuffling, but instead of it being sort of these like long sled things, it's almost like 6 legs, like 3 on each side, that are articulated in such a way that the thing will walk forwards and backwards and stuff. I have done that as well. I think that's the limit of my experience with these things.
So cam shufflers are the kind of thing we were talking about when we spoke about Son of Waiachi.
Yeah.
And I think we also mentioned Drillzilla at the time as well.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you are basically, and this is the reason that they kind of fell out of favour with rule makers, is that it's basically the same as putting wheels on something, but you attach a nice long bar between the wheels, so you've basically got one big foot. And then if you do that a few times, you've got a set of feet that are always in contact with the ground.
Yeah.
So on one rotating shaft, you could have 4 sets of these feet, so at 90-degree intervals around that sort of wheel or shaft or whatever system you're using. So you've got constant contact with the ground, and the result is something that's very fast, very nimble, and has quite a lot of traction. And for a long time, that was counted as a walker, so not only did you have quite an efficient drive system, you were getting a huge weight advantage out of it. And to build a system like that doesn't cost you much extra weight. It's a little bit heavier than just putting wheels on, but not enough to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of equalise. That's not the word I'm going for, but it's the word I've got, with that weight advantage. So we saw things like Son of Waiachi coming in and absolutely dominating. Drillzilla was in the Robot Wars Extreme Warriors, I think it was, the American version of Robot Wars that was filmed at the Robot Wars studios. So that eventually got, not banned, but it got put into its own little area. So the actual walkers still got the big weight advantage, whereas cam shufflers just got a little one. I don't think they actually get any at all now, which is probably for the best.
I don't think they do, no. I don't think there's any advantage to using them over wheels anymore.
What we don't see at all is actual walkers. And the rules have quite a strict definition that I don't understand, which is that, and I quote from the Robot Wars build rules, but I believe Battlebots are practically identical, a walker must employ movable legs to support its weight. Each leg must have at least 2 degrees of freedom. Now, I thought that meant as in it could move 2 degrees as in a measurement of angle. You're telling me that's not true?
No, so a degree of freedom is the planes in which it can move. So if you hold your arm straight out to your side,
I'll hit the wall.
Well, whatever. Like, just imagine doing it, right? So you've got your arm out and your palm facing the floor. Your hand has several degrees of freedom. You can rotate your hand, which is 1 degree of freedom. So like keep your arm exactly like your shoulder where it is, but you can like rotate your hand around. So to point your palm at the ceiling and then at the floor and stuff. Is 1 degree of freedom. You can move your arm from where it is to be straight in front of you and then not straight behind you, but you can move it in that kind of plane, keeping it parallel with the ground, but moving it around in a big arc. That's another degree of freedom. And then a 3rd degree would be up and down. So you can keep it parallel with the wall that's in front of you, for example, and move it up and down like that way. So those are 3 of the degrees of freedom. There are other ones.
So we're talking more than just the sort of axes along which you can move here, aren't we?
Yeah, so they're all sort of like rotations around something. You can also, so if you've got your arm out and you pull your hand towards you, like you bend your elbow and your hand comes towards your body, that would be a translation degree of freedom. And then you've got a degree, so like towards you is 1, and then you can translate forwards and backwards, I think is another. And I think you could translate, like keeping your hand parallel with the ground, you can translate your hand up and down would be another as well. I think that's how that works.
So this would explain why the Robot Wars robot Anarchy would not meet the current rules on walkers. If you remember Anarchy.
I would have to look up how Anarchy moves.
So basically what it had was, I think it was 8 legs on each side, which were based off the movement of 2 wheels.
Yeah, so I mean, so these legs, this is similar to what I was describing with my Meccano thing, is that kind of thing, and yeah, they're sort of, yeah, that's almost exactly how the legs worked actually on my Meccano thing. Yeah, there's a great example, and yeah, I don't think they would count as that because I think all they've got is, I don't know, it's hard. I mean, I'm not, I can conceptualize the rotational like degrees of freedom very easily. The difference between some of the translational ones to me seems a bit arbitrary, but or seems not arbitrary. It's a bit, I don't know. I find it harder to sort of do that because I would make the argument that, like, I don't know, yeah, but I can see why that wouldn't be allowed in the rules.
I suppose the main consideration in the rules is that they want to make sure that you're making enough of a sacrifice to get your extra weight.
Yeah.
So it either needs to be a system that is equally effective as wheels, but needs more mass to make work, or it needs to be something that doesn't weigh a lot more, but gives you significantly less manoeuvrability. At that point, it's worth giving you extra weight to play with to make that worthwhile as a tactical decision.
Yeah.
That's the main consideration they're making when they're setting up these rules. So shufflers, you basically lose next to nothing by using them in terms of your mobility. If anything, you might even gain something. And it costs you a little bit of weight. And that's probably why people don't do it anymore. The weight use isn't worth it. But when they were getting that weight boost, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And when you look at walkers, the only sort of attempts we've seen at a walker was actually one of the robots we chose not to talk about, Praying Mantis, which was a proper legged thing that you have to imagine would have been next to useless. Because it seems to me there's just no way of making a legged walking robot fast enough, manoeuvrable enough, or strong enough.
Yeah, the strength is the thing that always gets me. Is you can probably build robots with like 6 or 8 legs and stuff that move in similar ways to insects or spiders and would be very, very manoeuvrable and be able to avoid a lot of stuff. But then you've got these huge like weak points of the legs. You know, if you imagine having something like that, even with a bigger weight allowance to beef up the armor on those legs, something like Carbide could just sweep your feet out and then your robot's dead. It's sort of like, I think in combat robots, or in combat robotics, I just think walkers are just inherently uncompetitive. I just don't think you could build an effective one. I don't know. It seems very unlikely that someone is going to build an effective competitive robot in combat robotics. I'd love it if there was like a separate competition of just walkers, of like you've got to build something that's, but like proper walkers, like, you know, like I said, like spidery type things or insecty like things, or even humanoids would be really interesting to do. There was the other like Japanese robot thing I sent you was like proper wrestling robots. They're humanoid robots that do actual wrestling moves on each other and stuff, which is quite funny. Seeing that in larger scales, in heavyweight class type things and stuff would be amazing.
I do wonder if that's something that might actually eventually become a thing. I don't know if it's maybe too niche for a lot of the builders that are out there, but it would be an interesting thing to see.
It would. I think doing that kind of thing would be much, much harder, especially humanoids would be much harder to do.
Oh yeah, the humanoid, I think you just leave that to where it's already happening, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think you could do like 6 or more legged robots, I think, and have them compete in interesting ways. I think the thing about doing those leg type things is probably, I think it would be harder to do the kinds of weapons like Carbide and stuff that would be so devastating to them in when fighting wheeled robots. I think, but maybe not. And I think it'd be very interesting. I think it'd be a very, very interesting competition to see.
And this is really a thing with all of these systems that we're going to look at. With the exception of cam shufflers, and even they were only useful historically, these are all things that you would do because it's interesting, not because it's effective.
Yeah.
None of what we're talking about here is even that close to the optimal way to build a combat robot. And none of those are more true than the whole Rex gyroscopic procession thing. Because as we said before, it is an absolutely ridiculous idea. It's completely non-competitive, but it is really cool.
Mm.
And now I suppose I have to finally try and explain it.
Do it!
So the idea behind Rex is that it harnesses the usually problematic force of gyroscopic precession. So this is the gyro dancing that we see on the big vertical spinners like the drums and the discs, where when they try to turn left or right, it tends to lift one side of the robot. The way gyroscopic precession works is that any time you try and rotate the axis of a spinning object, that creates a force at right angles to the force that you're putting in. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Good, you're still alive. That's helpful. That means the audience might be. Now, for this, I'm going to kind of use the aviation terminology of movement.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and talk in terms of pitch, so nose up or nose down, roll, right side up or left side up, and yaw, as in clockwise or anti-clockwise. So what we're normally seeing with a wheeled robot is that they're trying to yaw clockwise or anti-clockwise, and that causes the robot to roll.
Yeah, so if we're thinking about the disc, specifically as a vertical disc, when you were talking earlier, I was imagining a horizontal spinning plane, but yeah, so a vertical one, yeah, you've got your yaw is the problematic one.
Yeah, and the reason we're not seeing any of this with horizontals is quite simply that they're not rotating the axis. All of the movement they're trying to do is in line with the plane of rotation of their weapon. Unless it's something like an Ironside or a Chrome Fly with their slightly angled blade, but it's near enough that we're not going to worry about it. So what Rex is doing is the complete opposite. It's rolling intentionally. The movement it creates is a roll, and that then creates yaw that it uses. So by fairly smart distribution of the robot's weight and the contact points with the ground, it uses that yaw to create forward movement by alternating the direction and waddling along.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that is an absolutely ingenious system.
Yeah, so I've got a roll of tape and I'm sort of spinning it, just thinking about how this all works.
Go on, ask me a question, test me, make me explain better.
No, I think you've done a great job. I mean, but then I know how gyroscopic precision works, so maybe I'm not the right person to judge how good an explanation you've done, seeing as I know what you're going for. But yeah, it's exactly right. That is how it works. Obviously, yeah, it's so. I'm going to assume that everyone knows what Rex looks like. So the back it's rolling against the two back feet things, and then the precession is yawing it to slowly drag itself forwards.
I'd argue it's not dragging.
Actually,
that is a good question.
I mean,
does
like
it
the back
drag
feet,
itself or does it push itself? At what point in the robot is it, what part of the robot is it pivoting around as it moves is a good question. Because I always imagined that when it creates that roll, the yaw is kind of pushed through the feet almost. That's not the best explanation I've ever given. But, the main contact point with the ground is the foot at the back.
Yeah.
So say it rolls anti-clockwise, that means that the right side of the robot ends up moving forward, the back left kind of stays stationary. So when it then does the opposite, the left side kind of catches up with where the right is.
Yeah.
That's how I imagine it being, but the contact points might actually be working slightly differently now I think about it.
I think that's probably how it's going. I mean, I've not seen enough of it moving to know, but I mean, like just thinking about it purely hypothetically, that seems like the way it would happen. I think it's I don't know. I think it's probably fairer to say that it's pushing itself forwards than dragging itself forwards. I use dragging to be a bit demeaning to it, but less.
And then I made it a serious conversation.
Less of a technicality and more of a that sounds worse than pushing itself.
I mean, it does kind of have the aesthetic of, some poor climber who's fallen down a ravine and in a 127 hours-esque movement has had to sort of chop their own legs off, ignoring the fact that would definitely kill them, and is then having to pull themselves along the dusty track back to civilization with like a trail of their own blood behind them. That is the exact aesthetic that Rex gives when it looks. So I can understand that kind of feeling.
That analogy, man.
I got way too into that.
Oh dear.
The good news is, I think I've found something more ridiculous than that.
What is more ridiculous than a completely useless drive system like gyroscopic precession?
Here's the thing. It's a more ridiculous idea, but it's also more effective. So I don't know what side it's going to fall for you. I'm going to send you a video.
Okay.
I would advise you to mute it because the sound is very annoying.
Perfect.
And I'm going to explain what's going on while you take a look at it. Oh, burn.
Right then,
So this is an ant weight called Vibrant.
Yeah.
And it is a brush bot.
Vibrant. It's just called Vibrant, mate.
I was going with the builder's intention of using the word ants, like every ant weight seems to. So what this does is it uses the vibration caused by its own weapons to move it forward. So instead of feet or wheels, it's got a set of brushes that make contact with the ground.
So I guess it's relying on the fact that it's easier for it to be. It takes less effort, less energy to push itself forwards than it does to push backwards, right?
Absolutely. So there's some kind of quite precise positioning and angling of the brushes that means that when the weapons are running, so it's got two big spinning weapons on each side, when they're running, they create vibration that makes it inch forward.
That is very clever. It's amazingly manoeuvrable as well. He's obviously just adjusting the speed of the two weapons there, and he can rotate and stuff.
Excellent. And one thing that it can do, just because of its size as much as anything, is that it can kind of torque steer quite effectively by suddenly stopping or starting one of the weapons.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic way of sort of, if you're going to talk about weight usage, which matters far more in ant weights and flea weights and things like that than anywhere else, you're not actually giving any weight over to a drive system. Your weapon is your drive system.
Yeah.
So it does allow you to have a far more potent weapon. Rex, of course, has exactly the same thing, but it can't really harness it because it can't get around fast enough. So this, I think, is a really neat idea. I wouldn't expect it to ever scale up.
Yeah. What kind of weapon would you need to vibrate a heavyweight enough to do that? I can't imagine that would ever work on big robots.
I would imagine, and again, we're slipping terrifyingly towards physics here, I would imagine its effectiveness is a factor of two things. First of all, what proportion of your robot's weight is in that rotating mass? Don't know why I just mixed weight and mass there, but we'll go with it. And also, the properties of the material that you're making the brushes out of in terms of their stiffness.
Yeah.
So it might well be that you could scale it up to get the forward movement. The difficulty you'd have is that, obviously, with a much larger rotating mass, even with the more powerful motors, you're going to struggle to spin up or stop as quickly to get that torque steering, which is quite important to the sort of battle readiness of one of these robots. Because bear in mind, it can't reverse. If it's in a tight spot, it needs to spin 180 out of there and go forwards.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could get that kind of behaviour out of a heavyweight-sized weapon.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Out of the two, which is more ridiculous, the gyroscopic procession or the brushbot?
Well, so the thing is, the brushbot only works, I suspect, at small scales. So I don't think it's, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think the brushbot is more interesting. Like that's much more interesting to me. I'd much rather see that than the gyro thing, because it's controllable. Because you've got a robot that you can, with reasonable speed and efficiency and accuracy, drive towards a target. Whereas with the gyro dancing that Rex does, you can't do those things.
They did it once.
Yeah, look, once in two series, across the span of two series is not really enough, is it?
It's fine. They showed that it can work.
What is that saying about monkeys and Shakespeare?
I think for me, the process of coming up with the idea of Rex, I think, is more impressive than the process of coming up with the idea of a brushbot. Because a brushbot is something that people have been doing for ages as a kid's toy, by just like taking a scrub brush, attaching a motor to it and making a slightly imbalanced weight and watching that kind of dance around. So it wouldn't have been too much of a step to go, hey, I could actually control this movement.
I mean, it's the same mechanics as like those hexabug things, isn't it?
Exactly. Whereas with Rex, they've taken something that is usually a problem of their chosen weapon type and made it into something that is absolutely integral to the way their robot works.
I still think it's stupid.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not stupid, but being stupid doesn't stop it being brilliant.
It's very clever. I'll give
it's
them
that
that.
Hemicon mentality. It's stupid but excellent.
It's clever.
Its excellence actually stems from its stupidity. The fact that someone had that idea and went, I know this isn't going to win, but I'm going to make it and enter it anyway, just makes it better for me. People who were talented enough to make that are definitely talented enough to make a more competitive robot, but they chose not to.
Do you want to tell me about linear induction quickly, or?
I did want to, but then we kind of spoke about it already. I don't know why I left it on here, but Road Rash, and other robots that we chose not to talk about but have mentioned before, came with two drive systems. They came with a normal wheeled system and they also came with a linear induction setup. The idea being that instead of your usual linear induction being there is a stationary set of linear induction motors that make something fly away, they put them on the robot, and we're going to use it to move the robot. You can tell I haven't prepared this explanation.
I can't wrap my head around how it works. So you've got these like linear induction motors in the robot which interact with the metal floor, right? To sort of propel themselves around. And I can't quite get my head around how that works. But very clever. I'm guessing they were bitten by the fact that the metal on the floor was very, very thin this year.
Probably more to do with the amount of paint that was over it. It was quite a thick layer of paint that I think affected a lot of people who were trying to use magnetic systems and things. I'm also not sure they even tried it in the end. They might have gone with the far more reliable wheels. Yeah,
because I think it must have been Chomp definitely sort of talked about that. They were further away from the metal than they originally thought, so their magnetic thing didn't work. And did you mention that Beta had some magnets as well? Didn't work as effectively.
They did. I think their issue was more that they were starting to pull the floor up than anything. But that may have been in the previous series. I don't quite recall.
They had magnets that worked, but were...
Oh, with Beta, the story was that for the previous series, they came with the magnets, started pulling the floor up, and therefore had to withdraw. I think for this series, they didn't bother with them and just let it jump around.
Yeah, fair enough.
Jump up, and get down.
Oh, God. You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/10. There you can find links to all the robots and other things that we've talked about. And you can also find a link to our Twitter page where you can tweet us the size of the hard drive in your computer. And you can also find a link to our iTunes page where we'd really appreciate a rating.